Strange sighting Bedford, Indiana. Sighting date, July, 1998. Submitted, October 16, 2004. It was July of 1998. I was installing an outdoor receptacle on the front porch of a home just east of Bedford, Indiana. It was around 9:30 p.m. when I took a break. Standing out in the yard, I happened to glance up and saw a light moving across the sky. A little to the west, I saw another light and then a third light. They moved at the same speed, and I realized they were three lights of the same craft. Whatever it was, the shape was triangular, and must have been the size of 2 city blocks. Please note that I never saw anything but the lights. There was no sound at all, and its speed was that of a single-engine plane. I estimate the height at around 800 to 1,000 feet. I observed this only for a few minutes as it disappeared.
Year, 1981. Season, fall month, October. Date, 26. State, Indiana. County, Lawrence County. Location details. It was just off the airport road east of Bedford and just south of Highway 50, about 3 to 4 miles on a small gravel road near Leatherwood Creek. We had just crossed a bridge over the creek and were heading east. Nearest town, east of Bedford Inn. Nearest road, south of Highway 50. Observed. This sighting occurred in October of 1981. I had just been discharged from the Marine Corps. I was 21 years old at the time. I have lived in this area of Indiana all my life. I am an avid hunter and outdoorsman with much experience. I am a raccoon hunter also and have been hunting at night by myself many times. It was a warm Saturday afternoon in late October. My sister and her boyfriend and his sister and myself went on a picnic at Spring Mill State Park. After the picnic, my sister's boyfriend and her went home. The other girl and myself decided to go out riding around in the country to enjoy the fall leaves. We were heading east of Bedford, Indiana, on a small gravel road near the airport. This road went to a small creek bottom by Leatherwood Creek. There was thick forest on one side of the road and a cornfield on the other, surrounded by thick briars. We had crossed the bridge over Leatherwood Creek and I pulled my 4x4 truck off to the side of the road. We were headed east. I was looking down adjusting the radio when my companion stated that someone was watching us. I looked up and to my disbelief I saw something standing in the middle of the road about 50 to 60 yards to our front. This thing was at least 6 to 7 feet tall, standing upright. It was covered in long dark gray and brown hair. I could not see its face. I could feel the hair on the back of my neck standing up. My companion was terrified. I slowly removed an M1 carbine from its case and inserted a magazine. The creature continued to watch us closely. I opened the truck door and stepped out onto the road. I began to move slowly towards the creature. As I did, it turned and ran through the briars into the cornfield. I returned to the truck very shaken. I have never seen anything like this. My companion insisted that I take her home, which I did. We never went out again. I have often wondered why I did not fire my weapon at the creature. I guess it looked somewhat human-like and it made no threatening behavior. I never reported this incident because I figured no one would believe me anyway. Also noticed, none that I can think of other witnesses, just myself and my date. We were riding around in my 4x4 enjoying the fall leaves. Other stories. Noted some reports on your website about encounters near Bedford in the Hoosier National Forest, which is very near to the location where these events took place. Time and conditions. Late afternoon. It was warm and dry, very sunny. Environment. A creek bottom with heavy forest on one side and a cornfield on the other side surrounded by thick briars. Follow-up investigation report. The first thing that entered Derek's mind when he had his sighting was, who is that? Upon getting closer and hearing his friend's question repeated, he told me, it was more like, what is that? He approached close enough to see the wind blowing the creature's hair around. I asked about the general appearance of the animal and was told, I couldn't see the eyes because that area was very dark and covered with hair. He mentioned that the head did suggest being pointed or almost. The animal was thickly built with heavy legs. He mentioned it had no neck. The color was a brownish gray. When he approached it, he mentioned two things to me. The first was he didn't think he could shoot. It was so manlike, and it wasn't doing anything. Secondly, if he used the weapon he had along, it would have had a minimal effect which he wouldn't have felt comfortable about. He was just out of the Marines and full of energy during the time he had his encounter. Upon the approach of it, he mentioned it took 2 quick strides and it was gone. Although manlike, it seemed to have the longest hair on its trunk, body. Also, he thought it might be somebody playing a trick on them since it was so close to Halloween. What changed his mind quickly was the way it moved and where it went. It leaped into a series of wild rose bushes with thorns. It tore right through, and it wouldn't be something that a person would do in Derek's opinion, especially with the length of stride and speed exhibited. He also mentioned smelling an odor. This area was on the edge of the Hoosier National Forest.
I checked the newspaper in my hometown and I noticed the picture today about this elderly fellow that had built a model of something he saw. I noticed the orange lights and thought maybe his info could link to the incidents in northern Indiana last April. Folks in this area are quite friendly, and I think he would be willing to talk. If Link doesn't show his picture, then you'll have to check their archive or try to see Their E-Edition. www.tmnews.com Huron, Philip King used some gutter screen, a few dozen reflectors, 2 satellite dishes, 4 mobile home foundation legs and some other bits and pieces to create a replica of what he says he saw flying over US 50.
The 15th of October 2011, 9 p.m. Mitchell, Indiana. We were camping at Spring Mill State Park Campground, in the primitive camping area. There were 5 adults 32 to 45 and 3 children 4, 13 and 16. Around 9 p.m. or so on Sat the 15th, we were getting ready to have hot dogs around the fire. Everyone was pretty busy at the time except for my one buddy Bob. He must have been saying, "Look, what heck is that?" many times, because it did not register until he was yelling it and said afterwards, "Aren't you glad I kept saying it?" Anyway, by the time I looked up, the object was right above us but to the south about 30 to 40 days from center sky. The object was a roundish amber-colored orb of light. It was pulsing slightly in an uneven, electrical pulse, like manna, and had a slight wobble to its otherwise straight line trajectory. It was moving west to east and disappeared in the tree line. My other buddy Dallas went to his truck at campsite over to grab something and came back telling us that it just crossed over going the opposite direction. When I first looked up to the object, I could tell instantly that it was not something normal. Personally, I was amazed and looking at it intently, trying to notice and take in everything I could. No one else seemed to think much of it other than the 3 of us. But it was gone rather quickly, even though its speed did not seem to be that fast. Again, it was a round amber, orangish red glowing like light. But the light was uneven and blurred, with a jittery pulse to it. It was on a straight line trajectory but seemed to have a wobble to it. The pulsing along with wobble and uneven light almost gave it a character or personality of sorts. Like if it was an entity, it was not felling to well. I really wish I would see it track across the sky the opposite direction again. Thanks for taking the info, Jason.
My friend and I are from Jackson County. One summer day in the year 2000, we went cruising out in the country. We started driving around 11 p.m. approximate. We eventually got lost and didn't know where we were. My friend was driving, and he eventually said something like, "I think I know where we are. We are by Tunnelton, which is in Lawrence County." He said there were some tunnels close by that you drive through and that was kinda spooky. So, I said okay, let's do it. We started driving looking for these tunnels. I remember it was around 2 a.m. because I looked at the radio clock and said something like, "It's getting late. Are we going to stay out all night?" My friend said we will start back home when we find a tunnel. I don't remember exactly how I saw the 2 objects that I saw, but I do remember the sky being clear and rounding a corner. I am not sure how far away the 2 objects were, but they appeared to be as big as a softball or basketball from my angle. One of the objects was blue. I am not sure if the whole thing was blue, but it was glowing blue. The other object was red and it was growing red. They were disc-shaped and appeared to hovering. They eventually started moving and it seemed like they were circling each other. Both objects started flashing lights. I do not think they were in a pattern, but I honestly do not know. I was in shock. I knew these objects were not normal. The red object eventually spun like a top and disappeared. The blue object soon followed. It looked like they spun and flew off, but they flew off so fast that I couldn't tell if they really did or just disappeared. I looked at my friend after all of this because we were in complete silence while we watched. He said he tried talking to me during the ordeal, but it was like he couldn't talk. I don't remember feeling this way, but he said he did. I do remember feeling like a numb feeling and feeling like my thought process had slowed down. I have only told my wife and my parents about this night. Of course, no one believes me, but I know that I saw something special this night. This night has stayed with me all of these years.